Hey, what is up, Hawk fans? I wanted to do one more video in lieu of Iowa's loss to UCLA on the road. I did my post-game video, and a lot of this was said, but there are a few more things that I want to emphasize. So, number one, and somebody commented this in my video, and I do agree with this, that, and I knew that this was going to be tough because as a former athlete myself, I have done this traveling, maybe not quite as much, but I have done it and I know how difficult it can be. But, you know, Iowa did have to travel across the country on a short week after playing a night game against Wisconsin, and there was the hour change. So you have, you know, the time differential from the Midwest to Southern California, West Coast time, Pacific time, and then obviously the time went, I believe, back an hour. So that was difficult. But what I would say to that is simply that in this day and age, and I agree with all that, by the way, but in this day and age, especially for a program like Iowa or, you know, any Big Ten program, the resources, the assistance, medical attention, trainers that Iowa players have access to is as good as it gets. It is as good as it gets. It's on par with professional football teams, okay? It is that good. Because in some ways, universities have to make up, well, maybe not make up, but they have that revenue to put towards that in order to build up their institution and have athletes choose their program. Because in the NFL, they compensate that by giving you a full-blown salary. So it's an excuse, but it's not a big enough excuse, in my opinion, to say that this was an acceptable loss, because it 100% was not. Okay? This season, and this is the biggest thing that I want to say, this season, I saw somebody write an article dating, they compared this season to 1997 or 1998, where there was all this talent coming back, especially on the defense. You know, the pieces were there. There were actually weapons offensively. There were, you know, you had the new offensive coordinator. I don't know for sure, because I was born a little bit before 1997, so I'm not as aware of that season as maybe somebody else who's a little bit older. But the bottom line is, there were massive expectations for this season, as there should have been. Iowa had one of the most returning starters in the entire country, and I believe the most returning starters in the Big Ten. Okay? And there are certain things, such as the defense being abysmal on the road, allowing 400 plus yards in multiple games when they hadn't done so for multiple years, that is just not acceptable. The whole missed tackle situation, that is not acceptable. Okay? Blown coverages, it happens, but the amount of it is not acceptable. Iowa's defensive back room, which is usually fairly steadfast and strong, maybe not the best position group on the Iowa Hawkeye roster, but, you know, still decent. has struggled this year, to put it mildly. Jamari Harris has been okay, but he's certainly not the best or top-end cornerback that Iowa has had in the last 5-10 years. This season has been a failure. And I know that every year, and because I've done this for a few years now, making videos and being involved in the Iowa Hawkeye community, I see how Iowa fans respond. And there still are a lot of Iowa fans who take on the mindset of, well, shouldn't we just be happy that Iowa has a winning record? It could be worse. Look at this team. Look at that team. What about last year? Iowa did good last year. Okay. But we're looking at this season in a vacuum. We're looking at the talent that they have. We're looking at the schedule that they had, which was better than most people expected, by the way. And I've detailed that. Even the Iowa media gets that wrong. I put on my Facebook the strength of schedule, the strength of record that Iowa has, and it's better than most people realize. This season is a failure. And for any Iowa fan that wants to cope and sugarcoat that, it's be my guest, but it's not accurate. You're not doing the Iowa program any favors by doing that. Okay? I think most Iowa fans, including myself, even if Iowa found a way to get to 8-9 wins, we still could probably live with this season. It still would have not met expectations, but we could live with this season. But there's a decent chance that Iowa will only win 7 games in the regular season this year. So yes, I did have a change of clothing here. I'm combining these two clips. So just to pick up where I left off on the other one, this season has been a failure. Iowa is going to have to get back to the drawing board, figure out what exactly led to Iowa not meeting expectations this year. From my vantage point, it's very hard. Honestly, guys, it's very hard to say because the Iowa offense is better statistically, but I've said this pretty much from the beginning. It's hard to tell how much is Tim Lester and how much is it Caleb Johnson and his resurgence and Iowa's offensive line improving as a whole. I mean, has Iowa's offensive line had some issues? Yes, but it has been better for the most part than most years, or the past couple of years. So how much is Tim Lester versus that? We do know defensively Iowa is not what it has been the last couple of years. And so that is definitely something that is going to have to hit the drawing board. Iowa's special teams should be the same, probably better next year. That's good news. Drew Stevens will likely be back. I don't think he's done enough to put himself in the NFL draft conversation as a specialist. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Drew Stevens is above average and has been for most of his career at Iowa as a place kicker, but there's only so many of those jobs to go around in the NFL, and you have to literally have, you need to be like a top 5 kicker across the country, and even that might not be enough. You still will probably be picked up as an undrafted free agent, or have a Tory Taylor type historic season. Okay, I believe Tory Taylor actually could have come back for one more season, but he did go off to the NFL. Now, Drew Stevens has been Iowa's kicker since being a true freshman. So it's a different situation because Drew Stevens came to Iowa straight out of high school. Tory Taylor came to Iowa as like a grown man, and I'm sure he had already finished his degree a couple of years into being at Iowa. So Drew Stevens, it's a tough business as a kicker, and I can almost guarantee that the push for him is to finish his degree, just in case the NFL type stuff doesn't. So, long story short, I think Drew Stevens is going to be coming back next year. Obviously, Iowa will have Reese Dakin, who actually did have a really solid freshman year, comparable to Tory Taylor, and the sky's the limit for this kid. I know a lot of people are hesitant to compare him to Tory Taylor and have that expectation, but I've looked at the numbers, folks. His freshman year is comparable and has been at times, if not even at this moment, better than Tory Taylor's first year. So Iowa, I'll have to look at Caden Wetschgen. I don't think Caden Wetschgen has any more eligibility, but I would have to look. So, and I've seen a lot of people say that Iowa is going to be losing all of these pieces. So, on the defense, yes, they will be losing Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson. Those are big losses, but Iowa has had the two leading replacements. The two leading replacements will be guys that are going into their senior season. So, they will be veterans. They won't be veteran as far as their playing time as linebackers. They've gotten plenty of special teams action, but they will be seniors, Jaden Harrell and Carson Sherrar. And there's many other possible linebacker prospects. Ben Cooter, a.k.a. Ben Keeter, is expected to return to Iowa football. Iowa had a really great linebacker class in this past class, and they have a really good linebacker class in this class. So that's fine. Iowa will be losing Schulte. They'll be losing Jamari Harris. The good news is, though, is that Iowa's cornerback room, while they don't have a stud yet, and they haven't had a consistent number two, because of that, a lot of those guys have a lot of experience. So it's not like it's completely depleted. On Iowa's defensive line, it's going to depend on who stays and who goes. Iowa, I think, will be losing Deontay Craig. So that's one. We'll see what happens with, and I believe they will be losing Ethan Herkett, which is two. I believe he's a senior this year as well. And Y.A. Black. So actually the defensive line is losing quite a bit of pieces. We'll see what Aaron Graves decides to do. I think there's a decent chance that he goes pro because he has really had a phenomenal season. I mean, the guy has an NFL physique. But some of the guys might have the COVID year remaining, so we'll have to look at that. I need to research what the final year is of COVID year eligible guys, and I think that this is the last year. Guys that are seniors this year are the last year, but I would need to check that. So continuing to look at the defense and who they have returning, like I said, I'm gonna have to see who has the extra year, extra COVID year. But the defense has enough pieces returning, and they have enough people in the pipeline, in my estimation, that are older guys as well as young prospects to emerge. As I've said in the past, oddly enough, the years that Iowa has like established veteran starters that maybe even could have gone off to the NFL, they seem to have a down season or a letdown season. And the years that they don't have that, and they have guys that are trying to emerge, trying to break through, Iowa has better seasons. So, to me, the talent on the defense for next year is not the concern. The concern from this down season defensively is, can Phil Parker figure out what went wrong this year, schematically, coverage-wise, preparation-wise, and get it dialed back and get Iowa back to being a consistent top 10 defense? That is the question, not the talent. Iowa has talent defensively, and they have recruited extremely well on the defensive side of the ball, especially across the defensive line. I mean, Kelvin Bell has done a heck of a job recruiting the D-line. Offensively, Iowa's going to have a lot of key pieces return, especially from the wide receiver core, unless they decide to transfer, which is certainly possible. The only one that I thought was going to transfer was Caleb Brown, and he did. I don't know that I believe anybody is going to transfer quite yet. Maybe Seth Anderson, maybe because he's older and he has not established himself as a full-blown starter yet. But Iowa is going to need, and especially with the emergence of Jacob Gill, Iowa does need those like slot type receivers. But maybe Seth Anderson can develop into more of a outside threat. You know, we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, any one of those guys could transfer. I mean, I don't think Reese Vanderzee will transfer. I don't think Jacob Gill will transfer, and those are two good starting places for the wide receiver group. Running back, Caleb Johnson is gone. Okay, you don't have that type of season, especially at the running back position and return. He's gone. Would I be shocked if he returned? No, but I think he's gone. Given kind of how the running back room is viewed as far as age being a very important factor, I think he's gone. I think Caleb Johnson will test much better. Well, maybe not much better than people expect, but better. I mean, people do know that he's an explosive, especially top-end speed running back, and he's got great size, he's got an excellent frame, but I think he's gone, which is okay. You know, yes, it'll be a big loss. I mean, anytime you lose 1,500 yards of rushing talent, that's a big deal. Production, that's a big deal. But Iowa does have guys in that running back room that they have developed, that they have built, and I feel confident that they will at least be serviceable for next year. We'll see if anybody decides to transfer, okay? But I think they'll be fine, and plus Iowa does have some younger running backs even still to turn to. Brevin Dole, Xavier Williams, and trying to remember if there was, no, that would be it. So the biggest thing offensively is the quarterback, and just kind of bringing this video back to what it was originally about, which is the letdown that was this year. I've seen some people say that if Cade McNamara is healthy for the Maryland game, that he is going to start, and they believe that he is going to start. I definitely think that that's a possibility, but I got to tell you, this is just classic Kirk Ferentz to stick with Cade McNamara for as long as he did, and as soon as Brendan Sullivan has a slightly down, well, maybe not slightly, a down performance, he yanks him. Now, maybe he's injured. I thought he was pulled because of his lack of production, and he was struggling mightily. So, personally, and by the way, Jackson Stratton, I actually thought physically he looked great. I think he's a much better backup prospect than Deacon Hill or any of those guys. But it's funny, you guys get to see like what I'm dealing with on the road here. Then Deacon Hill, but is he the future prospect? I don't know. And it's hard to know what Iowa has with Marco Lainez because he's been injured this year. I think Iowa needs, especially since there's nothing left to play for this year, as far as like actual, outside of trying to finish the best win-loss season that they can. Outside of that, there's nothing left to play for. I think Iowa needs to see what they have in Brendan Sullivan. That is what they need to do. Now, would I be surprised if they go back to Cade McNamara? Of course not, because Iowa doesn't think long-term like that, which is absolutely ridiculous. So they need to go to Brendan Sullivan and see what they have. But it would be classic Iowa to go back to a quarterback that there's nothing to play for, and you know what you have in Cade McNamara, and it's not great. So that is the biggest thing to keep an eye on, and just see, for Iowa fans, we need to see if there's any hope for next year and things of that nature. All right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, share. See you guys next time. DBAP, don't be a pussy willow. In fact, your feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. See you guys next time. Bye. Go Hawks.